Next into the Spark tank is Brass 2 Bucks. This team is automating the process of sorting spent rounds to save man-hours and repurpose airmen while generating $5 million in revenue to pay for it. I'm surprised they let you all in here with all of that.
Good afternoon. I'm James Eimers with my teammates Luke Stover and Aaron Grissom, and we hail from the Mighty 90 from Air Force Global Strike Command. We are asking for $700,000 to purchase 2 commercial off-the-shelf spent brass sorter machines and assistance from your staff to set up a line of effort with the Defense Logistics Agency.
We have a very simple question for all of you. What would you do with an extra $5 million a year? You could fund R&D for these other great Spark Tank ideas. You could invest in critical infrastructure across our bases, or you could pay the salary of the airmen standing in the back of this room. However it's used, it would not go to waste. Unfortunately, that's exactly what we're doing every single year, wasting as much as $5 million by recycling small arms ammunition. See, currently, the Air Force expends some 65 million rounds of small arms ammunition every year. And currently, those casings are certified expended by hand, consuming 26,000 labor hours a year. To demonstrate, I have in front of you a small pile of brass casings. I would ask you to please certify them expended by verifying the absence of a projectile and that the primer has been struck. Once certified expended, those casings can be sold for $1.10 a pound. That is a fraction of their value as reloadable cartridges. For example, these 50 casings weigh 1 pound, and they could be sold as scrap for $1.10. Or those same 50 casings could be sold. Those same 50 casings could be sold as reloadable cartridges for $5. Wait for it. And 87 cents. When you multiply that across the Air Force's 65 million rounds, you're looking at potential revenue increases of $5 million a year. Now, this is not a difficult task sorting through this brass, but it is time-consuming and monotonous, and for those reasons, it is a perfect candidate for innovation.
Our plan is simple. We would centralize the 2 spent brass sorters at an existing ammunition depot, such as Hill Air Force Base. We would then ask all Air Force bases to ship their spent brass with existing quarterly ammunition shipments to save on shipping costs. These 2 spent brass sorters, running 16 hours a day, 200 days a year, would be able to process all of the Air Force's 65 million casings. The processed brass would be verified expended, sorted by caliber, and ready for resale, generating up to $5 million while saving $700,000 annually in direct labor costs. If we decide to expand this across the DoD, we could be looking at potential revenue increase of $57 million with nearly $6 million in direct labor costs being saved annually.
There's latent value in each and every one of these 65 million casings. We'd like to capitalize on that value, bringing millions of dollars and thousands of labor hours back to the Air Force every year. All we need from you is $700,000 and assistance from your staffs.
That completes our 3 minutes.
So is this now done locally at every base? Or so have you factored into your plan the shipping costs and those kind of things?
Yes, ma'am. So currently, the Air Force either recycles spent brass at the local base or they ship it to a consolidated DLA recycling center. So there already is some transportation costs associated with transporting to DLA. Transportation costs is one of those important variables in this profitability equation. Consolidating these spent brass casings with existing shipments will really drive down that transportation cost. We've already have that fixed cost associated with our current shipments. We're just talking about a small marginal cost increase to send the brass as well.
Why 2 and not more? What's the right trade-off in the curve?
2 will allow us to process all of the 65 million rounds physically in a year. Anything more than that would be excess. However, if we're looking across the DoD, we'd be looking at 19 spent brass sorters.
But I mean, if you trade off less shipping charge for more machines, do you save money by shipping them shorter distances?
There would be a cost-benefit analysis that you could do to determine the correct number of machines. We determined that since we're already shipping munitions to these depots, such as Hill Air Force Base, it would make sense to locate them there. But yes, sir, that's a great point.
Are there any logistics considerations associated with the possibility of shipping live rounds mixed in with spent rounds?
So we would ship these shipments as explosive, 1.4S hazard class division. And that would ensure that they are handled accordingly with DOT regulations. Mm-hmm. There is an additional cost with that, but that's how we would have to ship them until they're certified.
How much do you budget the savings of the people who don't have to do the thankless job of looking in these holes in the primers?
So if you assume that a really motivated airman can do 2,000 cases per year, and you look at the DoD expending 600...
Per hour.
2,000 cases per hour, sorry, yes. Not per year, 2,000 per hour, yes. And you assume that we're hand-checking all 605 million cases every year, that's 300,000 man-hours per year checking cases. If you assume $31 per hour for a senior airman to check cases, that is $6 million. That gets pricey pretty quickly. So.
Did you say both would be at the same location or 2 different locations?
So we would centralize the 2 at the same location, so that way there's only one shipping place that we're going to be sending them to. 99% of all, I shouldn't say 99, 90% of all shipments come out of Hill right now, or that local area, so shipping there makes the most sense, sir.
What do you assess as the commercial interest in this, in terms of, you know, once you get the rounds there and to get the kind of savings you're talking about, as you've talked about this, have you got the level of interest that you think we need for this?
So that's another important variable in the profit equation, is there a viable market for these recycled or reusable rounds? We're not economists, we don't pretend to be, but I know that there are a lot of smart people in DLA that could research that question. I will say that this is a small portion of the reloadable rounds market when we're just talking about the Air Force. If we start talking about the DoD, that might be a different equation. But I think it's marketable and economic at this point.
Cool. Judges, do we have a spark?
How fast do you think you can move out?
So the production lead time for a spent brass sorter machine is 6 months, so we can operate this fiscal year, sir. In the meantime, we can order them tomorrow if you have your checkbook ready. And then, and then in the next 6 months, we can develop the Air Force policy and the OIs, and then hire the manpower to run these machines, sir.
Yeah, I'll tell you that in terms of a spark, my interest is as big as a joint chief that is as an air chief.
Copy that, sir.
Because we really need to look through this with the lens of what is this going to do for us department-wide. So I would encourage you that as we go forward, let's take a look at this from what it does for soldiers, sailor, Marines, and Air Force going forward, because I think you captured it. This is a small percentage of the total rounds available.
I want to know whether the 2 of you are willing to take the lead. Not only do this for the Air Force, but with the chief to say, okay, we want to make this move forward, but there's some analysis to do. You've got to work with DLA. You've got to, which is probably a sociological problem as much as a technical problem, right? Are you willing to take the lead?
Yes, ma'am. We stand ready to serve however we can.
All right. If you lead, we'll support you.
Yes, ma'am.